there. As you can see, it bears all the burn signatures of all of my previous videos, including this piece here on the ground that goes up there, a couple pieces. But let's check this one out. You see the burn on the inside, completely burned, and notice the unburned right down the middle here. Right here in the middle. That's just as unburned as the outside here. But again, so I want someone to consider possibly purchasing this piece. If not, I've already got a couple in my kitchen that I'll show you what they turn out like. They turn out really cool once they're lacquered up. My point is, I'm sick of people saying that it's field activated combustion synthesis. Just because all these unburned leaves right here and this wood that's burnt clear down to the stub, right here, all of it, by the way, burnt. See that? I had to lift the leaves off of it to show you the charcoaled wood below. That's why I'm sick of hearing people saying field activated combustion synthesis. It's the only thing you hear them saying anymore. It's forest fire. So let's go check the one down the road, which is right there. There's only 2 main trees on the property. Here's this one as I'm walking up on it. Clearly another example of the same thing. So I'm just gonna look at the overall because I can show you all these details and all the others. For right now, kind of just looking to get this and get out of here, but whoa! Look at how thick this is. These roots that go into the ground, the mass of this tree is why it conducted so much electricity. Look at the size of that thing. This is one branch that comes out here. There might be another one over there. We'll just circle around this thing. It is huge. And that's why it conducted so much electricity. That's an example of how big this thing is. And again, it's got all the cow-colored lines, burn lines. Fire don't do that. I'll shut up now with the fire don't do that and just show you. This right here, how it burned on the inside, it hollowed out the inside. You can actually see that it's hollowed out inside of this log and left the outside. Some of these, you can see how this curls. Some of these, you'll see a twirly, curly Q spiral looking piece of wood and the burn line that follows it. So look how massive this thing is. There's my foot. And that's a tree stump. Unbelievable. And notice how hot it had to get all this? That hot, everything that burned? Except those. So while this is sizzling, it is not combusting. That's why they call it combustion synthesis. It sizzles and sizzles and sizzles and smokes like all heck. But just like a campfire, because it does not combust, it smokes like all heck. At a campfire, as soon as you blow on that thing and you get the flames to kick in, whoa. The smoke disappears once the flames kick in. See the curvature of this? This is just all one big massive evidence of crime against humanity. That's what this is. Or we're just test firing it. I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't know. I'm just showing you the evidence of what I do know. Trying not to speculate too much about who's behind it, what their motives are. But I know the truth is what we need. Regardless of who's behind what the agenda is, the truth. You see that unburned piece way back in the middle? That's the thickness of how it's burned about 2 fingers width off of this entire log, and again, you see that unburned line. Okay, so I'll come back, maybe I'll talk to the landowner about cutting this and lacquering it. I'm taking bids. I'm gonna show you guys a smaller version of what I've already lacquered at my house and see if anyone wants a piece of history. So yeah, this is just one big mangled example. Look how thin this piece of wood is. This thing has been hollowed out. This is where it gets really cool. This is a round curvature right there of a log that was about that big around. Then it burned on the inside out. You can see the bottom of this is completely burned, but the top, this little part right here, is still unburned. Once you scrub that with water and lacquer it, this part is unburned wood, but it burned so hot that it burned this entire piece of a log from the inside out, but left that one little tiny piece of wood unburned. My Baphomet Diablo mask at home has a little tiny piece like this, and a lot of them turn out like that. The way it's unburned here continues clear out here, even though it was hollowed out right there from the inside. And the unburned leaves here, don't try to adjust your picture. You have entered the twilight zone. Unburned leaves, burned wood. Okay, I better get going because surely I'm not the first one to notice this. And I need to go ask property, figure out whose land this is. But I figured in service of getting the truth out there, anyone who sees what it is I'm doing, once they come to reprimand me for trespassing, will see that there is a far higher infraction going here, a little misdemeanor going on, like intergalactic. What do they call that? The Star Trekian Prime Directive, not to interfere with the development and the evolution of another species. I think that's been violated here. The trespassing, we'll forgive that. Someone's trespassing on the Star Trekian Prime Directive. Okay? That's where the trespassing's being done. And you'll see under here, I'm not sure how that really works into the whole thing, but a lot of these, they all burn from the inside out. So they're giant holes in the ground. This is actually kind of an anomaly. I've never quite seen a tree stump this big, maybe at all, much less burnt by the dews. So here's the one, down the road is the other, and then there's my car clear the other end. So we'll go check out the other one and then get out of here. But before we go, as I'm walking away, I noticed this. So just so you know, it's not just that bush and this bush. Though those two bushes took it real hard, there's also the less obvious and more subtle signs here and there. So we're now over to this next one, where you can see these logs did get hit a little bit. You can tell by that black dot and that black dot. Those are more subtle signs that once you've seen stuff like this, you recognize the more subtle signs. I don't know how subtle that is, but most people wouldn't notice. They see forest fire. And just a piece like this, let's just check this out a little more. So, here's this one. Okay, and there's two here, 1, 2, and they're really good and cooked with plenty of unburnt weeds all over them. That should be like that's picturesque, isn't it? Isn't that like a what's wrong with this picture that you could ask a 5-year-old and they would be able to go, wouldn't the 5-year-old be able to tell you? That's a logic question that they put on tests in school. Can you use logical deductive reasoning and tell me what's wrong with this picture? Do you think a 5-year-old would be able to tell you, That's way more burnt than that, and they couldn't be touching, or the other would burn also, teacher. I think so. I'm not sure what age you would have to be able to show, but you could show that picture right there. And without telling them the context and their personal attachment to the outcome of what this means and the implication of it, every one of them would be able to tell you what's wrong with that picture. But when they see it in their own backyard, their personal attachment to the outcome of the implication of what that is and what's wrong with that picture obscures their vision. They can't see the obvious right in front of their face, because if that's true, then that means X, Y, Z, and for me and my family and humanity and their personal attachment or collective attachment to the outcome is what prevents them from being able to see the obvious what's wrong with this picture. It's also another thing that says the hardest thing to understand is that which would require you to change your ways. Well, this requires some adjustment, people. And that's why people want to run me off and say, shut up, get out of here, don't tell anyone. Let's just try and finish off a few more years till I retire, and you guys can all deal with this after I'm gone. Just let life go on as usual, as if nothing happened while I'm still here. Wow, look at this. That's buried that deep of a concave into the log, and zero burn on either side of it. And down here it gets even deeper. That's like my whole fist buried, and zero burn on each side. Then if you get over here, you'll see the depth of that has burned 6-8 inches down in. Leaving both sides untouched. And by the way, these would have lit on fire if there was combustion. If there was flame here, these leaves would have gone up, but there was no flame here. Remember that all this wood burned out with zero flame, or these would have gone up with certainty. Or these, how about these? These are directly straight up, because you might go, well, those weren't right above it. This is directly above that. This whole thing had zero flame. That's called field activated combustion synthesis. It synthesizes something like combustion, fire, but it uses microwaves and the little tiny metal particles that have been in the chemtrails that they've been spraying in the sky for so long that we've used the same cognitive dissonance to avoid acknowledging and pretend it's not real. Say it's not happening. Those conspiracy theorists, they're just gonna ruin my perfectly pleasant afternoon with all their end of the world nonsense. So that's what's happening here. No combustion, zero flame, and the intensity of the heat that it would have taken to make a log like this, the base of a log, density. We all know the knot of a wood is much harder. It's harder to cut through, it's harder to burn. In these fires, it's exactly opposite. The greater density of the veins of the fibers in the wood, the more electrical lines. It uses those veins and the fiber and the grain of the wood like electrical lines. And that's why you see it black wherever there was a electrical line protruding, another branch about to come out. All of the veins come to a point right there and focus the energy wherever it was going to come out. And so dense wood burns and less dense stuff does not, and that's why you can see a scene like this. With all this stuff completely blackened to the point where it had to reach a very high temperature, but you can see that it did not combust. There is no way that it could have combusted. That means no flame did this. This all burned without a flame. Check this one out. See how unburned it is on the top? This one would make a really cool lacquered piece. Maybe not. There's a lot better ones at home. Keep this tree in mind when I show you what I've got at home and how cool some of the stuff looks after you get it lacquered. This one would be quite the task to remove, so that would require someone to commission the work prior to. But other than that, I'm going to Park City. because there's a place called Sticks and Stones and Pebbles and Twigs that I've been reluctantly hesitating to go pitch my products to, but now that I can show them this stuff in their own backyard, from Heber to Camas to Park City, and I can take them literally 2-minute drive down the road, show them an example of this, it's no longer a theory that you can choose to or not to engage in. This is in your own backyard. It makes it a lot different. So that's a game changer. Now that I found this evidence in Park City, where I'm going to be pitching my wares that I've spent the last year developing, and I can bring them here, or I can bring them to that other place where the telephone pole has the perfect square burnt in it, and the neighbor is probably going to see me again, and hopefully we'll be on better terms this time. And I can ask him if he'd like to know now what it is that's causing this, now that his daughter's not present. Either way, there's the airport right over there. So that's where we are, people. They dropped this down right next to the airport. Okay. One last thing I spotted on the way out. Just another small sign, and after showing you everything I just showed you, this seems almost insignificant. But that's what they call being punch drunk. You got hit so many times by so many hard ones, now you're just woozy and the little ones bounce right off. So this is a little one, but it still has all the unburnt leaves and weeds around it, and it still shows you that there is something very unfiery going on. Yeah, we can start making up our new words. Judy Woods made up dustification after 9/11 happened and turned the entire building to dust. She had to make up a new word to describe what it is we're seeing. Well, field activated combustion synthesis, I've only heard it one place, and that's by James Grundvig. I'm gonna hit the road, we'll talk later. So that's where we are, US Highway 189 and 2400 South. And that's Heber Airport behind it. And that's where the two trees are right there, and I'm going to show you from the roadside as we go past.